Hello there and welcome to this week's edition of Eye on Port, brought to you by Star Assurance, UT Logistics, the Royal Bank and Ghana Community Network Services. This week we're going to focus a lot more on trade facilitation because the entire week was dedicated for a national single window conference held here in Ghana. And Eye on Port is going to dedicate this program for the national single window. We're going to find out what at all is this national single window? What are we to do? And as a country, why should we even at all have to begin to implement the national single window? We will be finding out more. In the meantime, take a listen to the opening ceremony of that conference. The Ministry of Finance has directed the Ghana Revenue Authority to apply appropriate sanctions against those who will abuse the national single window system.
The single window will provide an opportunity for businesses to lodge their documents, including certificates of origin, invoices, customs declarations, and import and export permits as a single location, that is electronically.
Speaking at the opening of a 4-day National Single Window Stakeholders Conference in Accra, the Finance Minister disclosed that the full implementation of the National Single Window project will take off in December 2016. Speaking on behalf of the President, John Dramani Mahama, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Ebo Barton Oduro, said the project would help reduce corruption and enhance transparency.
Government will ensure the significant reduction in corruption by improving methods to counter dishonest practices and reducing discretion.
Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry Murtala Mohammed emphasized that the inefficiencies in doing business in Ghana is frustrating traders.
The frustrations that people go through from where I sit at the Ministry of Trade, particularly importers and exporters, is just unacceptable. That people who otherwise would have had their goods cleared in hours would end up spending weeks and months in having them cleared.
George Blankson, Commissioner General of GRA, said the national single window will provide practical means of improving border clearance performance.
This arrangement has created a synergy that utilizes the core competencies of each of the stakeholders to implement a seamless, efficient, and user-friendly e-clearance regime in a national single window environment.
A panel of experts followed the presentation on best ways of implementing effective single window project. That was the opening ceremony of the National Single Window Conference held at the La Palm Royal Beach Hotel over the last week. Lots of statements, lots of presentations and coming from the experts. But what at all do all of these English and presentations mean? I sat down with the experts, the World Customs Organization Secretary General, the former Secretary General for World Trade Organization, also United Nations consultant, all of them, plus the Ghana Customs, to find out what is a single window, what should we be looking out for.
For many of us who are not too familiar with the concept of single window, because a number of Ghanaians started hearing them recently when we had to do away with the destination inspection companies. From your perspective, what really is it?
A national single window such as Ghana is intended to facilitate the movement of goods across borders and in transit. It's intended to simplify procedures, provide a harmonized framework within which traders can act. Importantly, submitting information and data in a single entry point so that you do not have to undergo the duplication that takes place now in many countries and in Ghana, and which costs time, it costs money.
Why do we need this so much to the extent that it's now a UN-driven project?
Well, the formal recommendation on establishing a single window was approved by UN member states in 2005. We think this is a good idea. We recommend governments to implement this single window. And since that time, the implementation of single window has shown a tremendous success. There's almost 100 single windows now worldwide. So it's actually one of the most successful recommendations from the UN.
Is there a particular framework guiding standards? What should be done? What should be done by countries for you to know that indeed they are following the single window path?
A single window is a process. It's not a once-off event. So there's a progression in the implementation of single window. Some countries start with just a customs-based single window, so it's the automation of customs, the declarations, and so on, getting customs to work better. And they say, well, that's a single window. Then what people say, well, let's move on from that. Let's have engagement of all of the other government agencies, agriculture, transport, etc., because you need an all-of-government approach for single window to be effective. And then going further beyond that, connecting up with the port community systems, connecting with the banks, etc. So single window is an evolutionary process.
I see. So if I understand you clearly, until Ghanaian importers and exporters are able to take, or for instance, importers are able to clear their goods in, for instance, 2 or 3 days or a week, out of the 41 days as we heard, or more, as we heard from the plenary session, until we begin to see that, single window doesn't mean anything to us.
In reality, it doesn't mean anything. You saw the goals. Within 3 years, reduce the days by 50%, reduce the cost by 50%. This is the kind of key performance indicators that tell you that you're making the progress. You look at the single window in Singapore, first single window in the world, more than 20 years ago. Did they just establish and switch it on and leave it at that? No, they're still working on developing the single window.
Customs, are you also recommending the single window as an option?
Of course, nowadays all the economies are vying for economic competitiveness. And the important part of economic competitiveness is the efficiency of border crossing. And the customs are at borders. And for that, use of information technology is very important.
Are you doing something as a world body to equip custom organizations all over the world, and Ghana in particular?
But what is important is political will. That at the highest political level, that this is a priority, so support customs and all other government agencies, including port, or including trade ministries, agriculture, all sectors, that they have to share data so that they can facilitate trade.
Yeah, but are you also lobbying government to assist you? Because in Ghana here, it was just recently, it was actually in September 1st that we saw customs take over the destination inspection groups, and many people were asking questions, why has it taken us that long? What roles do you play in ensuring that governments in countries listen?
Actually, it was 2 years ago that I was here in Ghana, that I had a privilege to have audience with President Mahama, and I asked him that, the efficiency of border agency, especially customs, is key to economic competitiveness. And this is why, in terms of risk management, valuation, and classification, customs should take over their function. And of course, it took 2 years, but this is a necessary national process to get engagement of all stakeholders.
Saviani, as a country, where are we? Do you think that we have bought into this single window idea, and what were we doing before?
If we look at our history, we realize that we have moved from one piece to another until where we have found ourselves today. And that should guide us in the next step to take. You and I know what happens at our ports. You have so many organizations all interested in the same item.
I mean, their presence at the port.
Yes, but instead of having a single inspection, we have multiple inspections. And this is adding to the cost of doing business as well as the time to deliver goods from the port. So, as a community, we realized that it was not suitable and we had to do something to change. Otherwise, we'll be left behind.
When did we realize this?
It was realized long ago, and customs tried the initiative, but because there was no support at the time, things were not working. If you remember, somewhere in 2007, an attempt was made to take over the classification, valuation, and risk management function from the DICs. It went all the way. It was just about to be implemented, and there was a sudden change. And we had to go on with the destination inspection companies until 1st September this year, when we took over from them. So it has not been easy.
Prior to taking over, it's as if we thought we were having single window, but it doesn't look like we did. What was the situation at the time?
We had one entry point where goods, documents relating to import and export of goods were lodged. Apparently, it operated in such a way that some of the people who were on board the GCNet system, you had to go to them from one point to the other. For example, if I wanted a permit from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, I'll have to lodge my documents with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And that information will not be known to the customs until they have made an approval of whatever document you put in there. And so you had to move from one place to the other, instead of lodging the documents at one place for the benefit of all those who are interested. So that is what people looked at and thought that we're operating the national single window.
Since you took over 1st September, where are we as far as our dream or vision to get to the single window destination is concerned?
We have just taken over the functions of our previous function of classification, valuation, and risk management, and that we are doing, which was being done by the destination inspection companies, and that will form a component of the single window. So we are just beginning, but we need to do the gap analysis and know exactly where we fall short and how we intend to correct them before we can roll out something meaningful and useful.
Mr. Smith, do you think that we can get to this vision?
Without a doubt. I mean, when you look at countries, what is critical is really to have the political support, leadership.
Is that all you need?
It is critical because one of the major difficulties is, of course, the resistance that is natural to human beings regarding change and the desire to stick with what exists. And especially when you have areas of responsibility that are carved out, set in legislation in many instances, you have to have the capacity to cut across all that and provide apex leadership.
Yes, the narration around single window says that you need to have all the agencies understand and play. You would need the cooperation of the freight forwarders, you need cooperation of agents, the Ports and Harbors Authority, and everybody else. How easy does that come? How are you able to get everybody, aside the top, which is a political will? I mean, you can have all the ministers come around, the president says that and that. How do you get everybody buy into the idea?
It's a challenging, it's a difficult task because, as you said, people are people, we're human, we resist change. Change always comes too soon. We want to stick with what we know. We're more comfortable with that. So to make change, I have to have two things. I have to have a will to change. Without the will to change, nothing happens. So the political will is the overarching will for that. But it's fun. You can do nothing without the political will. This is very clear. And all of the single windows that through the UN have interviewed and said, look, what's worked, what's not worked. The thing that comes out on top every time is political will. In addition to that, you need the internal motivation of the stakeholders to say, actually, yes, I'm on board with this. I am prepared to change the way I do business. I'm prepared to open that space.
Doesn't this single window look like something that takes forever? Even have to go to Parliament and change laws for people to understand themselves, or agencies to understand, to move away from it and let things happen. You don't think it's too long a process?
Not at all, because you make progress in steps, right? You make clear objectives, clear key performance indicators. Over the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, this is what we will achieve. You look, where are the immediate gains to be had? And many times you can find processes that are totally inappropriate anymore, and you can remove them or change the way you do business. You have to, I said it this morning, you have to challenge everything. So it's not a passive process. Let's all sit around. Do we agree? Do we agree? Everybody agree? Are you sure everybody agrees? Are you positive everybody agrees? This is what we do in the UN sometimes, and it can drive you crazy. But it's a process of saying, okay, why are we doing this? Does this make sense? Some people might argue, but the government takes responsibility.
So somebody must take the final decision and push everybody to go by it.
The government has the power, the authority, and the responsibility to say, I've heard all the arguments, this is what we're doing.
Is there a way to domesticate this whole single window picture? How it works in China or Korea or Singapore, should it be the same way it works in Tema or Takoradi Port?
We have to understand that there is market pressure that we are all vying for economic competitiveness. Therefore, we can't just leave behind and stay in a comfort zone. And for that, what is important is communication to stakeholders, that to share that idea and getting a common understanding. And this is why stakeholder engagement is very important. And of course, there is a strong political support. And those are the elements that is necessary. And this National Single Window Conference is, I see, that the start of this engaging people and get on board. Otherwise, you can't compete in this global supply chain environment.
And you are the head, you're the boss of the entire World Customs Organization. Would you be cutting criteria, for instance, for Ghana Customs, that you expect them to do that or that or that?
We provide assistance in making strategic planning because first you have to identify where are the gaps. And then based on the gaps, it is not only customs, but also with the business, even port authorities and other government agencies. And quite often doing a timely survey, you can identify where the delaying factor and then how each stakeholder, each player can improve their own performance. And so to set that performance measurement or KPI. And in that way, they can develop 2 or 3 years action plan so that they can really improve.
You've been in the port. When are we seeing the implementation of single window?
We are starting the gap analysis to deal with the issues that are on the ground. We want to know where we are, what we lack, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and how we intend to overcome them.
I thought you did that before taking over in September.
What we did in September was to take over the classification, valuation, and risk management function.
Okay.
Now we want to build a national single window, which involves every fellow who uses the trade supply chain.
We've heard about the pre-arrival reporting systems. Is it part of what you're doing?
That is a system that we are using to do the classification, valuation, and risk management.
Does that play any role in the single window?
It may eventually play a role when everything is synchronized.
How is the system helping now since you took over, even this pre-arrival reporting system?
The times that it used to take for them to get the document they require to put in the declaration, the time has reduced. And it's helping to cut down the cost of doing business.
So already we are seeing some effect.
There's some effect. So if it is coordinated and managed with other processes, then the long-term effect will be felt by everybody. When I joined customs in 1982, it was only the customs and then the port authorities and the shipping lines who were in the ports. And customs was doing agency duties for all these regulatory agencies. And we didn't have...
You had the customs chemist, for instance.
We didn't even have customs chemists at the time, but the requirements were specified. And if you met those requirements, your goods were released. Food and Drugs Authority or Food and Drugs Board, if they are in charge of drugs coming into the country, they have their own procedure of regulating it. Before you import, you should have gone to them, you should have been registered with them, they know where your business place is, and they can always get you at that.
So they were done, those processes were done outside the port.
And all they needed to do was to issue a permit to the beneficiary and a copy to the customs. So that when your goods arrive, we match them. And if it is correct, we release them.
But before we realize they've come into the port.
By law, they say they also need to be in the port. And Parliament granted them that authority. So that is why they are in the port.
But now, as you agree, we are pursuing a single window. You agree that there should be some changes as immediate as possible. If indeed we have the political will to get these folks back, to get your job done effectively.
And that is why we want to do the gap analysis to see where the problems are. If it means that we should remove them from the port, we have to tackle the legal aspect to ensure that whatever is in there is rectified to make sure that they go out of the port.
In your view, you think that if the presence of the agencies are reduced significantly in the port, it would facilitate this single window drive we're all seeking?
That is my thinking, and I believe that will be the thinking of many people. Because the more people you have in the port, the more time you have to spend with each agency, and that adds to the cost of doing business.
Mr. Kudio, our situation in Ghana, is it a peculiar case? Or?
I see similar problems everywhere, and but there are many countries that are starting to tackle this problem. And I observe several countries that have drastically reduced the number of agencies present at the port using a single window. But single window is a tool. But for that, this is why political will is very important, because in the end, it could be a tough war between agencies, ministries.
Definitely.
So this is why that the political will is
needed.
Yes, needed.
I agree.
And if there is a political will, I see several countries that have reduced and streamlined the procedure.
A 3-year roadmap, you think it's achievable? Where do you foresee us by the next 3 years when you get to come back to Ghana?
I hope that the 40 days will be reduced to 20, and we hope that your ranking on days of the index is significantly and substantial.
From 120, where would you want to see us?
Higher.
Where would you want to see us?
I'd like to see you just before Singapore, but...
Look at you. You returned to Ghana. You came here. The last time was 2 years ago, right? Hope to come back in 2 or 3 years. Where do you want to see us?
3 years time. This is a very good time frame to get the progress has been done. And of course, WCO and other international organizations are committed to helping Ghana to showcase that Ghana can make progress.
I'm sure you're also going to help our local customs a lot.
Sure, this is my commitment. This is why I'm here.
But Mr. Badler, where do you want to see Ghana in 3 years, the end of the 3-year roadmap?
So reduction in the documents, reduction in the cost, reduction in the times, reduction in the processes. And I don't want to wait 3 years to see that. I want to see progress along the way.
Okay. Mr. Vianney, everything rests on you and your technical partners. Where are we going to be in the next 3 years, hopefully?
Already, what we started as is yielding results. If everybody is committed and comes on board, if we get cooperation from the private sector, we believe that we should be able to move ahead. We have set our targets, and we believe that they are achievable. But as he said, we have to start achieving them from now, so that by 3 years we could have reached where we want to go.
Iron Pod returns pretty shortly after the break.
I've got no need to worry. I've got no room for doubt. No matter what's coming at me, you'll always be the beautiful I sing about. There ain't no limitations to your amazing grace. Your amazing grace. And there's something about the way your love shines on my face. Oh no, I can never get enough of you.
Star Assurance, creating smiles since 1985. Let go. Let's celebrate 30 years of solid partnership. Star Assurance, your solid partner.
I'll take care of you.
There's a place in my heart that makes me feel that you're the one. It's a place I wanna be, 'cause satisfaction guaranteed. From strength to strength you help me grow, 'cause you're there for me. And teach me how to be independent, 'cause you
The Royal Bank.
The Royal Bank.
The Royal Bank.
Bank you with transparency, commitment to integrity.
The Royal Bank.
The Royal Bank. The Royal Bank.
The Royal Bank. Real banking, real difference.
UT Logistics have come to stay. When you approach a job like the way we approach it, each job is unique. Each client is unique. We provide the best service in the system. We have best staff. We are very fast. We are quick, and we save customers a lot of money.
As lots of talks are going on Lots of presentation now going on as far as making trade facilitation possible in Ghana. A number of people continue to have concerns doing business in the port, and we have been encouraging all of you to send them to us. One of those persons is a man who is based in New York City all the way in the United States. He came to us complaining bitterly about the fact that, you know, he couldn't clear his goods on time, yet he had the money to pay for the penalties and everything that go along with it. Customs allowed him to clear all the other cars, but the Audi Q7, he was told by an official that government is interested in that car. For what reason, nobody knows. Let's take a listen to his concern. A US-based Ghanaian, Jonathan Hammond, and his wife, Olivia Hammond, are grieving over the seizure and eventual allocation of their Audi Q7 2007 model car to an unknown person, allegedly by some officials of customs and members of the Vehicle Allocation Committee at the Osu Castle.
All that I heard from the customs is that they seize people's cars because people fail to clear their cars on time, which make the port jam all the time. So when they start doing that, it will prompt the people to clear their things. Immediately they bring them. But here is the case. Our duties in this country gallops every day like a kangaroo.
According to him, several attempts to retrieve the car have proven futile. Narrating his ordeal to Iron Port, a worried Jonathan Hammond said he imported 4 cars, including an Audi Q7 from New York, to sell and use the proceeds to set up a factory.
You said you are gazetting the car and you are going to give the letters out, which means you are going to give it to somebody to pay and take it in the cheapest price. Then gazette it back to me and I pay. If you will not take the whole money that I'm holding, I think it was almost 53,000.
He said together with his wife raised loans from banks and friends to clear the cars, only for customs to tell them that the cars had accumulated demurrage. After persistent follow-ups, he said it took 2 months before they were giving a letter of privilege from customs to go for the cars.
The very last day that the privilege they gave us was going to expire, she was able to get the money and got to Tamaport. When she got there around 12 p.m., they said no, she can't clear the cars again. But we thought maybe if you're giving us a privilege, the expiration should expire at the end of the day. But around 12 p.m., they said we couldn't get the cars anymore. And we went back to customs, and they said this time around, the cars has been seized completely.
But upon going for the rest of the cars, they were later told by customs officials at the headquarters that they will only grant them access to 3 of the cars because the Audi Q7 has been seized.
They said they have the government interest to protect because sometimes it's not all about the money anymore once your cars have been seized, because they also need the cars for government official duties. In as much as we have the money to pay for the cars, they also, as the custom officers, have the government interest to protect. And my wife was holding the money in her hand, crying.
Jonathan Hammond led the Iron Port team to his house, where some spare parts of the Audi Q7, including the parking light, 2 headlights, the bumper, and other parts have been sitting idle. He said some people at the Gazette office are taking advantage of the demurrage of goods to make money for their personal gains.
This is my life. And whoever is sitting in this car should also look unto God and do me a favor and bring this car. And God will bless that person because it was bought out of blood money.
He urged government to take a second look at the customs clearance processes in the port in order not to burden importers.
I will appeal to the government to do away with the demurrage system in Ghana.
Well, it's obvious Jonathan and his wife Olivia are not happy doing business with the port, and the port authority says they are not going to sit down concerned. They will be finding out a lot more and get answers to Jonathan and Olivia, because it's our duty to market the port to you for you to do business here at the ports of Tema and the port of Takoradi, and in general the ports of Ghana. We won't be happy if you are not happy.
Be the beautiful I sing about. There ain't no limitations to your amazing grace, your amazing grace. And there's something about the way Your love shines on my face. Oh no, I can never get enough of you.
Star Assurance, creating smiles since 1985. Let go. Let's celebrate 30 years of solid partnership. Star Assurance, your solid partner.
I'll take care of you.
Banking with transparency, commitment to integrity. The Royal Bank, the Royal Bank.
The Royal Bank, real banking, real difference.
We've all heard stories about ports, about difficulties and challenges at the port. We think that to bring transparency to the port is very important for both the end consumers and even the people, some of the agents who work within the port. This program is very, very critical, and I think everybody who is involved in the port, in businesses that has impact on the port one way or the other, should make it a point to view it.
And next up are schedules of vessels sitting in the port like that behind me, and also those expected for the week, plus those coming from Anchorage, and the Bank of Ghana exchange rate next on your screens. For this week's edition of Eye on Port, and we're going to try as much as possible to find answers for Jonathan and Olivia, who can't find their Audi Q7, although they had money ready to pay penalty for late clearance of that particular car. In the meantime, I have to say a big thank you to my entire crew, Joe Lavo, also Robert Nyantechi, who is not feeling too well. Robert, you need to get back because I hear that you have a wedding coming up on the 19th. Also, Prince Bruce Lamte and Godwin Kabute, Isaac Bosu, and a whole lot of others who have supported this entire program. The executive producer is Paul Asariansa. A lot of thanks to you also for watching.